This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website.
Hi, I'm KCHOI. Welcome back to my channel. I know that many of you are subscribed to my channel because of my videos about my life as a consultant, and several of you have asked how consulting has changed since the pandemic or how I think the future of consulting is going to change because of the pandemic. So in this video, I want to talk about 4 of the things that have changed for me as a consultant during this time, and hopefully if you are looking into getting into consulting, this can give you a bit of insight about what's going on today and what your job might look like in the future, because obviously there's not as much information out there right now about consulting during COVID-19. This of course is just my experience so far working at a boutique change management consulting firm, and I know this might look different maybe if you're at a larger consulting firm, so just keep that in mind for this video. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, then please hit the subscribe button down below, and while you're there, hit the notification bell too so you can be notified whenever I post a new video about consulting. The number one thing that has changed for me so far has been travel. If you've watched my older Week in My Life as a Consultant vlogs, then you'll know that I used to travel multiple times per week, going from city to city for different client meetings. So a typical day for me before the pandemic might have been going into the office during the day, heading to the airport that afternoon or evening, and landing in whatever city I needed to be in for my client meeting, spend time that evening preparing with my project partners or teammates that were also traveling with me, then getting up early in the morning to do more prep or travel to the client site, having an all-day meeting with the client, and then going to the airport that evening again. So my weeks often consisted of late evenings or early mornings of prepping or traveling, and full days of having these in-person sessions with clients. Today, of course, that's all virtual, and so I can go from having one half-day meeting with one client straight into a half-day meeting with a different client without leaving my desk. It's obviously not ideal to have like 2 back-to-back working sessions with different clients because that's just too much brain power, to be honest. But whereas before the pandemic, I had to dedicate like a day and a half to one in-person meeting with a client, today I can theoretically do multiple meetings in a day because of the time saved without having all that travel. This was a huge lifestyle change for me because I was so used to traveling all the time for 2 years, and then to all of a sudden go from that and having this variety in my week to then just sitting at my desk every single day for the same time, about the same time every day. It was really hard to get used to at first, but now I really do appreciate it and appreciate the regularity of my schedule. Before, when I was traveling a lot, I often didn't know when or where I would be traveling until a couple of weeks out, which just made it a little bit harder to plan, especially my personal schedule. But now I've got that regularity and lack of travel. I'm just home all the time working, so I appreciate having that consistency. So on a related note, which I already touched on, is that all of my meetings now are virtual. There are just so many video calls all the time. Before the pandemic, I feel like it was totally acceptable and fine to leave your video off during a call. In fact, it was more the norm to leave your video off, and it was just sometimes if you really need to have some face-to-face conversation that you would turn your video on. But now I feel like if I keep my video off, then the others on the call might feel like I'm not fully engaged, because showing your video is of course a really good way to stay connected and show that engagement. But sometimes I just want to keep my video off, and I do leave my video off from time to time when I just need a break from showing my face all day long. But I understand the benefit of having video on for these calls. So I do try to leave it on most of the time, and it doesn't replace being in person, but it is an alternative that works and that we've made work for the past year. Also, with working virtually, it just takes a lot more preparation in order to run like a design session or a working session online. When you're in person, you can have a whiteboard or you can have sticky notes and you can create in the moment together. Whereas when you're virtual, you need to set up those spaces. You need to be really thoughtful about how you're capturing notes, especially if it's like a collaborative session. So you need to think about how you're capturing so that everyone can see, what you're talking about at the same time. How can you make it so that it's interactive where lots of people can contribute at the same time versus one person just like talking and others listening. It just takes a lot more thought and preparation to run a collaborative brainstorming or working session virtually. Even though it is more challenging, I think most companies have found a way to make it work. So that's why I think the amount of travel is definitely going to go down in the future. Maybe it'll pick back up again once everyone gets vaccinated and, people are eager to be in person, so I don't feel like it's going to go away. But I feel like clients will be a lot more selective about when they would want consultants to travel out for a meeting versus doing it virtually, because now we know that doing things virtually works. Another change that I've experienced is an increase in creating more digital deliverables. At my firm, we create a lot of in-person experiences and deliverables. So think conferences and workshops and in-person trainings and things like that. Now, of course, those all have to be virtual. Definitely with the pandemic, we've had to not only shift and evolve those in-person experiences into something virtual, but also the amount of digital and virtual things that we were already creating have increased. I think clients are definitely going to keep exploring virtual options because it's a really cost-effective way to get lots of people, in a company together. Obviously, there are things that are best achieved in person, like networking and things like that, but there are ways to make it work in a virtual setting. So again, similar to traveling for meetings and all of that, I think, we will eventually go back to doing more in-person deliverables and workshops and things like that. But I also think that the demand for virtual experiences and events is going to stay steady. The last thing I want to talk about is professional career development. I've found that my personal development, in my role has been a lot more difficult in the past year because you just don't get the same level of interaction with people. Obviously, at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was just focusing on staying afloat and trying to find out the right way to go. And so there wasn't really that much focus on, your own development. I think in so many different companies, not just in consulting, projects were being paused or canceled and people were being laid off or their salaries were getting cut. There's so much stuff going on that it's kind of hard to focus on, your own career development in that environment. It's also interesting to think about people who started a new career or a new job right as the pandemic was hitting. And so their first year in that role looks really different from the first year from someone a few years before. They're not going to have a lot of the same experiences that people before them have had in the same role. I can definitely feel that at my firm, everybody acknowledges and knows that the past year has just been really different. So none of that is taken in a negative way when it comes to personal development and growth and, the goals that you might have had for yourself a year ago, they might not be the same that you have today just because of how much everything has changed. And it's totally okay that your goals change because when the environment around you changes, then you just have to adapt to that accordingly. Now, before we wrap up, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. I've been partnering with Squarespace for a while now because I truly believe they are the best and easiest way to create a website. Whether you need to make a blog or personal website like I have, or a portfolio, an online store, a website for a restaurant, you name it, you can create it on Squarespace. They have beautiful templates to choose from and customize that basically guarantee that your website's going to look amazing, plus marketing tools and analytics tools so you can understand your performance and connect with your audience better. It's basically a one-stop shop, all-in-one platform for all of your website needs. So if you're interested in starting a website, then go to squarespace.com/KCHOI to get a free trial. Then when you're ready, use my code KCHOI to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and thanks to all of you who are subscribed to this channel that help make partnerships like this happen. I really, really appreciate it. That's it for this video. Those were just a few of my observations and thoughts on how consulting has changed because of the pandemic and how I think it's going to continue to look in the future. Again, I hope you found this video helpful, especially if you're looking to get into consulting but just aren't sure what it looks like today or might look like in the future. Let me know in the comments what other types of videos you want to see on this channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.